everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about the 1989 comedy film Major League and its brand new Paramount 4K Blu-ray. So Major League was released on April 7th, 1989. It is written and directed by David S. Ward. It stars Charlie Sheen, Tom Berenger, Dennis Haysbert, Wesley Snipes, and Rene Russo, amongst many, many other actors that appear in this film, and some baseball announcers like Bob Uecker, who appears in this film, who just gives a great performance as well. I mean, his lines in this movie are some of the most memorable of all time.
His first offering, just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He's just so perfect in this film, perfectly cast as the announcer of this down on their luck, ragtag group of people playing for the Cleveland Indians. And the reason why this group of players was assembled is because this fictionalized version of the Cleveland Indians, its owner had passed away, and his trophy wife ends up inheriting the team, but she doesn't want to stay in Cleveland. She wants to head on down to Miami, but the only way she can do that, the only way to avoid her contract with the city of Cleveland, is for the Indians to finish dead last, dropping attendance down to barely nothing, to the point where Major League Baseball has to agree to a move to Miami. And that's her plan. So what does she do? She brings in some of the worst baseball players around. They're either a bunch of washed up old timers or people who never even got their shot. We even have some felons. That's what Charlie Sheen is. We get Wesley Snipes, who I'm pretty sure never even played Major League ball.
How you doing? How you doing? My man.
And, you know, players like Tom Berenger, who are just way past their prime, playing in what looks like Mexico now. So she decides, you know what, we're going to bring them in. There's a guarantee they're going to finish last. But what happens is, they figure it out. They figure out, you know what, we were assembled to lose, so there's only one thing left to do, and that's to win the whole fucking thing. And that's pretty much what they set out to do. And if you've ever seen any sports films ever, you know exactly how this film ends. Of course, you get the big happy ending to this movie, but you're not just there for the ending, you're there for the journey to the ending. And this is one of the funniest comedies of all time, one of the funniest comedies of the 1980s, and is one of my personal favorite films from the 1980s. It's one of the most rewatchable films, mainly because in the 1980s we just put out well-paced movies. I don't know if it was just the cocaine, but it just feels like we knew how to write a tight comedy, jokes flying at you a mile a minute.
Mitchell Friedman? Who are these fucking guys?
While still telling a heartwarming story, this movie manages to tell a 162-game baseball season, including its spring training and its postseason, in a matter of 106 minutes, clocking in at under 2 hours. This movie just flies by. The jokes just keep coming at you. I mean, some of the lines in this movie are just absolutely hysterical. The one that always sticks out to me is, are you saying that Jesus Christ couldn't hit a curveball? I mean, Serrano is one of the greatest characters. And it's so funny because Dennis Haysbert, I've never seen him play any other character like Serrano. Every other time I've ever seen him, he always kind of fits into that same lane, but when he plays Serrano, he just falls into that role, and he's perfect for it. Charlie Sheen is Wild Thing. He's great in this movie as well. And, you know, no one is ever trying to outdo another one. It's very much an ensemble cast, you know.
Hello, you know us. We're a Major League Baseball team.
Yes, you know, Wesley Snipes, really before he hit his stride in the early 1990s, he's perfect in this movie as well. Of course, he wouldn't come back for the sequels. And speaking of the sequels, just avoid those. I think there are some people out there who like Major League 2. I'm not one of those people. I try and pretend that Major League 2 and Major League 3, I think it was called Return to the Minors, I try and pretend that those films do not exist so they don't take anything away from this classic comedy. And another thing that's fascinating about this film, this is actually the first film that Rene Russo ever appeared in. That's because she was a model first, so then she eventually shifted towards acting, and this is one of her first roles, and she is great in this movie as well. Another thing that's really fascinating about this movie is apparently Charlie Sheen could really pitch. A lot of times when we hire actors for films, they're not really good at sports. Apparently Wesley Snipes isn't really that fast or really even that good at baseball, but Charlie Sheen, he actually was a pro athlete. Apparently he was using steroids because he's Charlie Sheen, so of course he was. But whatever, it lent itself perfectly to the character. It does look like Wild Thing would actually end up doing steroids, so you know what? He's a method actor, makes all the sense in the world. And this is one of the most rewatchable films of the 1980s, and if by chance you haven't seen Major League, you owe it to yourself. It is just one of those fantastic 1980s comedies that has just aged like a fine wine. It just makes you think, man, we just don't get comedies anymore, and I don't know why. We can make a movie like this today, we just choose not to. And if by chance you haven't seen Major League, you really owe it to yourself to give this one a watch. Maybe you want to check it out on this brand new 4K Blu-ray that we're going to talk about right now.
Oh, sure, now you come around. He's not fooled.
Well, here it is. I actually grabbed the 4K Steelbook of Major League, and honestly, right out of the gate, the packaging for this, if you can get your hands on this 4K Steelbook, it's already one of my favorites that I've ever gotten. It looks like Serrano's locker, so, you know, when you come inside, we're going to see Jobu. But you see this, it looks just like the outside of his locker. I really absolutely love that. When you come around the back, if you look at this, these are magnets. I did not expect this. These actually peel off too, so, you know, the magnets on my refrigerator are terrible, so I'm really trying to decide, do I want to even keep these stuck to this, or, you know, and just go with the pictures on the back, or just keep them stuck to it. I'm not too sure yet. I haven't decided, because I really could use some new magnets. But anyway, when you come inside here, unfortunately, this is just a one-disc set, so you're only going to get the 4K Blu-ray, no Blu-ray packed in here. Like I said, interior artwork, we always appreciate that. There's Jobu right there, so make sure you don't steal his rum. And even though I went with the Steelbook option, the slipcover version is actually really nice too, where we get to see the back of Charlie Sheen's head looking at the crowd, because the end of this movie is one of the greatest moments in sports movie history. I mean, honestly, baseball just lends itself so well to film. It's amazing to me how many great baseball movies we've gotten, and the end of this movie doesn't feel like a comedy film. It just feels like a great end to a sports film, which is fantastic. And, you know, we kind of illustrate that on the slipcover version, whereas the Steelbook version is kind of more for the fans of this film. If you're a big fan of Major League, you definitely want that Steelbook version. So they just really knocked it out of the park when it comes to the packaging, no pun intended. And then the extras are all going to be on that 4K Blu-ray disc, so all the extras aren't actually brand new extras. They're all previously released extras, and I was trying to figure out when these extras really first came out. And it's funny because they have one of the extras is interviews with modern day baseball players. Well, modern day from the time they did those interviews. One of those interviews was with the current Yankees manager, Aaron Boone. But at a certain point of his career, he actually played for the Cleveland Indians. And funny enough, I actually met him when he was playing for the Cleveland Indians. I met him at spring training, I guess 2005 and 2006, because those are the only two seasons that he actually played for the Cleveland Indians. So that's when all of these extras came out. You actually get a 23-minute making of documentary on here. You get a commentary track, and you'll get that extra where we're just talking to the baseball players, looking at Major League and how they quote it. So that's a pretty fun extra as well. And then you also get the alternate ending to this film, which I do not think works. It's not the official ending of the movie. It actually would take place before the end of the film. And honestly, it serves no purpose. If you would have put this in the movie, in my opinion, it would absolutely ruin the movie. I'm not going to spoil what this alternate ending is. If you want to see it, you can. It's in horrible shape, mainly because it was never released before. And thank God, because even the acting in this sequence is pretty bad. You can just feel that their heart wasn't into it. And I'm really glad they did not actually use this alternate ending. But if you want to check it out, it's included in the extras as well. So even though there's no new extras, at least we got some extras. I can appreciate that. I, of course, would like a brand new looking back documentary. That's something that I always want. We didn't get that on here, but they still did a good job at least giving us all the previously released extras. You know, just felt like we could have got a little bit more. And then, you know, just staying on the negative side before we get into the real positives, this has a Dolby True HD 5.1, and this is the second Dolby True HD 5.1 I've been talking about in the last week after never talking about these really, mainly because they don't really use them that often anymore, and that's because the only reason they would end up using them is if they're recycled from previous releases, and that's exactly what they did with Major League. This is the exact same audio track that's been following around Major League since I believe 2009. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't own any of the previous releases physically, but from what I understand, this is the same 2009 track, and it shows, mainly because it doesn't sound that great. You know, a movie like this definitely deserves a little bit more pop and pizzazz to it. Yes, it's dialogue driven, but this has a great James Newton Howard score in this film, really moving the film along. It really lends itself perfectly to certain situations, especially when it comes to the dramatic situations. The James Newton Howard score is fantastic, and it just would have been even better if we would have got a brand new audio track. I didn't think we had to get a brand new Dolby Atmos track per se, although that's exactly what I would have wanted, but just a brand new audio track in general would have been nice because it just sounds very dated. Is it still crisp and clear? Yes, you're going to have no problems with the dialogue coming in. You don't have to worry about that. You can set your volume at whatever you want, but it just feels like a real missed opportunity. It's just a very average audio track when it really feels like you had the elements here to make a great audio track. So it's just really disappointing when it comes to the audio, especially when you get to the visuals, which does feature HDR10 and Dolby Vision, and this is the shining star other than the packaging. These visuals are a 10 out of 10. I absolutely love what they did with Major League. They cleaned this film up better than I have ever seen it. The colors were so vivid and dynamic and dense and bold, really just showing how colorful this movie really is. And, you know, it does take place for the most part in the daytime. You're wearing colorful uniforms. It is a very colorful movie. You know, the green grass, the blue skies, that stuff is just going to pop off your screen now. You know, this movie, when I think about it, for the ways I've previously seen it, I always think of it being like a little bit faded. The colors never really popped off their uniforms. And now you're even going to notice the quality of their uniforms. When you look at the 99 on the back of Vaughn's jersey, it really shows the layers of the actual uniform, which I really appreciate. That's something you never noticed in the past. One thing that might be kind of a negative for the visuals is, you know, I think this is more source material thing. Everything that kind of was an issue to me, which is why I still think the visuals are perfect, I'm pretty sure it's a source material thing, because I think this might be a lighting issue. Early in the movie, it's believed that Ricky Vaughn got cut from the team. You know, someone's playing a joke on him. They put a red tag in his locker. He goes in to see the manager. The manager, who has one of the most underrated mustaches of the 1980s, tells him, you know, I think someone's playing a joke on you. When they're talking, his uniform looks like it's almost a light blue. You know, think about what the Phillies or the Expos used to wear in like the 1970s, like almost that light blue. But then when he leaves the locker room and he tackles that guy, his uniform looks gray, and everybody's uniforms look gray, like almost like a light gray. So I'm thinking it was just something with the lighting in the office, but for some reason I feel like that could have been fixed on this 4K Blu-ray, but that was really the only issue I ever noticed throughout the entire 4K. There's a scene later where it's kind of just lit very dark, and it kind of looks a little bit fuzzy in those moments, but again, I just think that's a lighting issue, so I don't think that's the fault of the 4K Blu-ray. I actually think that the visuals on here are pretty much perfect. I mean, this is the best I could have ever imagined this film looking. This is even better than I could have imagined this film looking. I just wish that the audio could have matched up to how good the packaging is for this, how good the visuals are, really just giving the fans of this film what they want when it comes to the packaging. And even though the extras aren't new, the extras are at least pretty good, and I really do appreciate them. I would have liked a little bit more. That's kind of the one other thing that's a little bit disappointing to me, but really not as disappointing as the audio. The audio is really what let me down on this, but the visuals and the packaging are almost enough to just pick this right back up, and it's priced at about 25 bucks for that Steelbook, so it's honestly a steal when it comes to the pricing, and that's pretty good when they only give us one disc in here, which is another disappointment. Not including the Blu-ray pack-in disc. Definitely lets some people down, because I know people who just buy these 4K Blu-rays for the new scan of it on Blu-ray because they haven't upgraded the 4K Blu-ray yet. You know, it'd be cool if you included the Blu-ray disc because you're gonna get the sale anyway, but that also might raise the price of this 4K Blu-ray, so you know, you kind of got to find the happy medium there. But for me, overall, what do I think of Major League on 4K Blu-ray? Well, I think it's pretty damn good, and honestly, I'm very happy with my purchase, mainly because of the packaging and the visuals, so I would still give this 4K Blu-ray a really solid 8 out of 10. I can definitely recommend this one. Just a little bit disappointing. This easily could have been a grand slam. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could, turn notifications on. We also have channel memberships if you'd like to join that. Look for the link to that in the description below. We have a Friends of the Channel tier, we have a Producers tier. That's where you're going to find John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, and Mr. Smelly Potato. We also have a Directors tier. That's where you're going to find Frank Rodriguez from Frank's Media and Reviews. Make sure you head over to his YouTube channel and John Doe Juggalo's YouTube channels. Check them out, subscribe to them, and I promise you, you will not regret it. But if you got no money to throw our way, don't worry about it. We just appreciate you checking out this video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you get out in those streets and tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.